Welcome to the 3-0 show, part of the Athletic Baseball Show. It is Thursday, May 5th. Derek Van Riper, Britt Giroli, Ito Saris, all here with you on this Thursday. Today, we are celebrating Dusty Baker becoming the 12th manager in big league history to reach 2,000 wins. So probably more manager talk on this episode than we've had on every episode of this podcast throughout its entire existence. We're going to talk about the decision that the Mets made to move on from Robinson Canó and whether or not there's a path for him on another roster elsewhere. We're also going to talk about what has changed the most for us during the first month of the season. We'll talk risers, fallers, hitters, pitchers, teams that have really kind of changed our minds through the first month and change. We're also going to have our best April discovery, which is anything. It could be a player we've enjoyed watching, a team, a booth, whether it's TV, radio, whatever it might be, something we found enjoyable from this first month and change. And we'll have our newly renamed People of the Week segment because sometimes it could extend beyond hitters and pitchers. We'll give credit to Eno for renaming that segment during last week's show. So we begin today with Dusty Baker, 2,000 career wins. Britt, this is a huge milestone. 12th manager in big league history to reach that total. First black manager to reach 2,000 wins in big league history. I'm looking at Dusty, and I'm kind of glad that the narratives around him have changed over the course of my time watching baseball, where I feel like when I first entered the baseball infosphere, let's call it, if that's a thing, I don't know. It wasn't Twitter. Whatever was before blogs and, all the commentary, there was always this sort of negativity around Dusty because of how he handled young pitching and things like that. But clearly, the latest chapters of what he's done in Houston have done a lot to sort of round out the story. And of course, the question now is, will he get a World Series title? Will that happen? Will that be the crowning achievement on his career? But I would say of the managers that have been a part of the game throughout my lifetime, he might be on Mount Rushmore because he's just been a part of baseball as long as I've been watching it.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can talk to someone who starts a sentence with, when I played with Hank, meaning Aaron, we are talking about history, right? And I didn't cover him when he was in DC. I just missed him. But the stories you would hear from players about being around him, again, about that knowledge base that he has. This is a guy who's been in the game for, I don't know, 5-6 decades. It's just crazy to think about the wealth of knowledge that he has. And to me, you put him in the Hall of Fame, don't you? Easily. You put him in the Hall of Fame.
For sure, yeah.
Even without the 2,000 career wins, even before he got here, I think he'd be a Hall of Famer. I think, like you said, what happened with him getting another chance with Houston, which wasn't guaranteed, right? I don't think before the Astros cheating scandal went down, people were saying Dusty Baker is going to get another chance here. You weren't sure about these guys. You weren't sure about Dusty Baker or Buck Showalter, that kind of older group really ever getting a chance again, the way the game has shifted. And what's been awesome to see is those guys get another chance with talented teams and win. And then you wonder, okay, did we misjudge them? Did they really do a better job than we thought? Did they just need some talent? Did they need the right blend? Dusty had some talent in DC, but did they need the right blend of what James Click is bringing in Houston with analytics? Did they need that? I don't know, but I think it's been awesome to see. And so many people hate the Astros but love Dusty Baker, and they were so divided, I think, when Houston was in the World Series because of that. Like, they wanted Dusty to win, but it was very hard to root for the Astros. He makes them likable. This is what made him such a great hire, and I don't think anybody could have predicted the amount of success he was going to have, because when he came, he was managing for his life. He was on a 1-year deal, if you guys remember. He's still like a year-to-year kind of guy. And so I think that really tells you, too, this is a guy who's never been really given anything. It's not like Houston signed him to a 5-year deal. It was always like, well, we'll see. Well, people like Dusty, he's a perfect cover post-cheating scandal. Turns out he's a really good baseball manager as well. And you're seeing that. So I think it was just a really cool moment in baseball from a guy who is so well-liked, so universally well-respected. You saw Joey Votto give him like a Twitter shout-out. By the way, Joey Votto on social media instantly makes Twitter better. Ryan Zimmerman has said, like, there's no manager he'd rather go drink a bottle of wine and kind of trade stories with than Dusty. I think he's like that cool old grandpa that everybody wishes that they had. And I just think it's terrific.
Yeah, I think that whole the story arc with the Astros is fascinating because there is this thing that happens sometimes with minority managers or minorities in different situations that they sometimes when they get their chance, it's a crappy one. It's like, oh well, we need somebody, like the Astros, everybody hates us. Let's just paper over with Dusty Baker, and but the nice part is they've extended him. I think that they've realized how good of a mix he is, and that he is willing to discuss things with the front office. He is willing to maybe put the lineup in that the front office is pushing for, but his brilliance is not so much in the the tinkering with the lineup. His brilliance is exactly that, what you're talking about, in terms of they like him, they want to battle for him. It's just, you're less likely to have locker room strife if everyone kind of likes Dusty. You're less likely, there's less likely to be sniping in the media. You're just more likely to have a pleasant work environment. And I actually think, I've said that a lot on this show, that I think that's the number one thing that managers should do. I think that's the number one thing that they should do, is deal well with the media and create a nice, positive work environment. And he's amazing at those two things. So more power to him. I have the manager list up. I think that he is right there between a bunch of Hall of Famers. Everybody who has over 2,000 wins is in the Hall of Fame, other than Bruce Bochy, who may be there soon. Dusty Baker also has a better lifetime record than Bruce Bochy, who's actually below 500, 2003 wins and 2029 losses. But the only thing missing is, you look over at the World Series 1 category, and it is the only zero there among the 2000 win the group there. So the closest one is Leo DeRocher, who has 2008 wins and 1 World Series 1. So it would really cement his Hall of Fame status. But I do think that 2000 gets you in the Hall of Fame. It's a little bit like 3,000 hits.
Yeah, and I started to wonder, because we went through this with Miguel Cabrera reaching 3,000 hits. We're in this new era of baseball. Things change so quickly. Is there going to be another 2,000 win manager? That's much more likely than members of the 3,000 hit club. I mean, there's a longevity component to this, being willing to adapt as the game changes. Certainly, Dusty has done that very well. I think, you hit the nail on the head. What I expect a manager to do now is literally manage people, keep people happy, take different personalities, keep people going in the right direction when things are not going well, because over 162 games, things aren't going to go well for the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
I think, being able to apply the organizational philosophy and to sell that to players, that's part of the job as well. And again, something he's done exceptionally well. And Britt, to the point of what you brought up with Ryan Zimmerman, Dusty is absolutely the manager that, if you said you can go out for a beer, bottle of wine, whatever, with any manager, Dusty's stories would be better than anyone else's stories in the game right now among all the managers. It's not even close.
The man probably invented the high five. It's
also,
of course I want to talk to him.
Also, as we talk about going to get a bottle of wine, the guy owns a winery.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he's checking all the boxes for me, I just think, again, I would be like, listen, just tell me about Hank Aaron for most of the entire hour. I mean, how many people do you know who directly played with Hank Aaron?
It's a short list. And I think the thing about baseball history that I need to do a better job kind of gathering and appreciating right now is that the people that did play with Hank Aaron, this generation will not be around to tell the stories forever. There's only so much time for us to get those opportunities to speak to these people, to learn from them, and hopefully it's something we get a chance to do. But
what are some younger, because none of them are that young. And what are some younger guys that you could see being on, a trajectory like this? I'm kind of looking through, in terms of already having bulk, Buck Showalter with, 1,569 wins is probably the closest to kind of maybe making 2000. But in terms of like, younger guys that could manage for a long time, Dave Roberts already has that win under his belt. He only has 557 wins, so he has pretty far to go. But
Wow.
I get that same sort of sense from Dave Roberts, where he did just enough as a player, to garner that sort of respect, and then also is just really great with the media and one of the tougher media environments out there, and has shepherded a really good. Also has like a lot of talent every year, but has managed to, that's probably a demanding front office, and he's managed to bridge that gap between the coaching staff and the front office. So I don't know. I could see him kind of following in the footsteps there a little bit.
Yeah. Certainly if the Mets stay on this trajectory, if they ever win a World Series, Buck's got a 3-year deal, which is a lot for a newer manager, but he's not, he's a veteran. I could see that kind of solidifying his resume, right? Because you're looking at, Arizona wins right after he leaves. He creates that team. Same thing in New York.
And
Texas.
he's right in the middle of a bunch of Hall of Famers too in terms of wins. He's the only one without a World Series win.
Yeah, I think he needs probably the World Series ring to make it a little bit of a stronger case. And he could very well do that. The Mets have been did you guys see that the 2 New York teams and the 2 LA teams are in first place for like the first time ever right now?
Wow.
It is hard to have the Angels and the Mets simultaneously hold up their end of the bargain. At least it has been, for a long time.
We got to give one last shout out though, Terry Francona.
Yeah, he's the closest, actually.
Yeah, he's got 1,800 wins and a World Series. So I actually think he might be in. I think he might be a Hall of Famer as it is. There is a grouping of Hall of Famers, Hall of Fame managers that only got to 1,600 wins, like Tommy Lasorda and Dick Williams and Buck Showalter. No, Buck Showalter is there. He's not a Hall of Famer.
Not yet. It's going to come
in there.
Yeah. It's going to come down to health for Francona, right? Like I feel like that guy would manage until he couldn't, but it's physically going to become a health issue.
Yeah, he's already left the team a couple times.
Yeah.
So,
but I think if he got to he's already there. I think he's already. I mean, if he got to 1,800, what's the difference between 1,800 and 1,900? You already have a World Series win. I think he could be in already.
Yeah, you're right.
It seems like if you get to about 1,500 and you have a World Series win, that might be enough to get you.
Very few people have done both of those and are not in the Hall of Fame yet.
Yeah. So congrats to Dusty. Amazing achievement, one that we won't see a lot of in the years to come. If I had to pick a young manager that could do it, I'd actually go Craig Counsell because, look, I just think maybe it's because he looks so young. Like Craig Counsell has looked the same age since he was 25 years old. I feel like he's not aging. So
How old is he?
How old is Craig Counsell? He's in his 40s, probably 45.
8 years out of playing.
Was he 45? Only 45? Is that real?
51.
See, he's 51.
He does not look 51.
But if you give him 20 more years, and
you can manage into your 70s.
80 wins a season, then he'd get there. And I don't know. I mean, it's
Well,
harder in a smaller market, but he's home. He's literally managing his hometown team. If he wants to do it, it seems like the kind of thing where the manager can stay almost as long as he wants, so long as something unforeseen doesn't come through.
So speaking of which, what about Joe Madden, who we've kind of been back and forth on this pod? He has the Cubs win the World Series with that guy. He's old though. He may run how many wins?
World Series too.
The issue
1,370. It's not that much.
No, the issue too is age.
It's not a standout winning percentage either. 534. He's in
the Angels.
Here's
right
the question:
there.
If the Angels were to win the World Series this year, and Madden gets enough wins to be in the 14
then he's in.
50 range, and he says, "I'm going out on top. We won the World Series."
I mean,
is he in?
Earl Weaver has 1,480 wins and 1 World Series win. Miller Huggins has 1,413.
Earl Weaver was, weaving tapestries of profanity that are still hanging above.
But also Weaver
the Atlantic
changed
Ocean.
the game, right? Like, wasn't he like the bloop and a blast guy?
He's the 3-run home run guy.
Yeah, the 3-run home run guy.
Here's the thing with Madden: if you win in Anaheim, and then after you won iconically in Chicago,
that's 2 big wins.
Yeah, and he didn't get that. Rays also went to the World Series with him in 2008. They lost, but that Tampa Bay team was the first team that was ever good.
That's right.
I could see Madden getting in with a second World Series. I don't know if he'll
So
manage long enough to do it
yeah.
to get up to the Francona level of total wins and have the current World Series be enough, but he's certainly on a trajectory where he's got a shot. It's just a question of, are the Angels actually that good?
Is this too many Hall of Fame managers?
I don't know.
Well, at one point, I mean, player manager was a thing, right? And the answer to every manager question ever is actually just Connie Mack. Just if anyone asks you a question about manager records,
managed for 53 years. Tony La Russa's in second place with 35.
Yeah. Good luck, Tony. Good luck catching Connie Mack. Connie Mack managed from 1894 to 1950.
I just was about to say that. 1894 to fight.
Oh my
God.
Some things happened on the planet during that time too. So
it just strikes me as a lot, though. I don't know. Like the players had a large portion of the responsibility for winning those championships.
Still, it's incredible.
Managing is an unforgiving role. I think people who don't know, like, I think it's one of the worst jobs in baseball.
It could be.
It's so brutal every day. The schedule, you're there at 2:00, you're leaving at 2 a.m. going over roster moves. I don't think people realize like how bad of a job it is. You have to love it.
Yeah, I can see that.
You still live the lifestyle of a player in terms of being on the road, but you're not really you're not compensated like a star player. Maybe you're compensated better than a league minimum player in a lot of those cases, but it's it's not necessarily a glamorous job.
Flashpoint for all the media criticism.
Yes, and it's not the lifestyle of a player because a player can show up to the field at 4:00 on a late bus on the road. The manager's not showing up that late.
No, they got to be
at all.
Nice
and players can shower and get out of there when the game's over. The manager has to talk to the media, has to go over, roster moves, injury updates, meet with the front office. Like, it's way worse in my opinion.
Let's move on to one of the big stories coming out of the roster cut down over the weekend. I heard the kind folks over at MLB Network Radio debating this as I was driving around the other night, and Robinson Canó, a roster casualty as the Mets had to pare down that roster. I think they made the right call. This is not a decision that this organization under previous ownership was likely to have made. And it was in the face of, I think, some public support from Francisco Lindor after the Sunday night game. I believe he made some comments that he wanted to see Robinson Canó stick around. Unfortunately, you can't keep everybody. So it leads me to a question. Is it over for Robinson Canó? Because, I heard everyone on the panels on the MLB Network Radio debating whether or not he still had value. And they were leaning more toward the probably not, but because of universal DH, it's not impossible. Where do you fall on it?
It's such an uncomfortable discussion, man. Just like, here's a heaping turd of a question. I'm sorry, DVR. It's like,
turd question.
Is this guy's career over? Yes, I think his career's over.
Yes.
I'm sorry. It seems awful to say it, but he has no bat speed anymore. He has not hit a single ball to center field or right field, which is not necessarily an exact, representation of bat speed, but it's just like he can't. The bat speed is gone. It's nothing there. I don't know.
And here's the thing that bothers me is like if he does get signed somewhere and he comes back, people are going to write it as like a redemption story. But this guy made his own bed. He cheated. He got suspended. He was a steroid user. So I don't really want to hear the like he's great for the clubhouse kind of rhetoric. To me,
does he have the good stuff?
Yeah, to me, like Lindor, I watched that Lindor interview. He said, it was tough. I liked Canó, but I respect the front office's decision. So it was more like, yeah, he's cool to have around, but if we're going to win baseball games, I'd rather have Dom Smith.
Yeah, I mean, I think
like, you know what I mean?
To me, that was a no-brainer decision from just a pure talent standpoint. But I just think teams a lot of times get caught up in, we owe this guy a lot of money, and there's a track record, and we had to wait this long. And you don't. It's sunk cost fallacy, for lack of a better term. I don't like talking about players who are at the end of their career. It's not fun. It's more fun to talk about rising stars and players who are playing well.
Awful. It's a really hard time for the player.
It's got to be.
It's so hard.
I mean, imagine if you had anything in your life, even as like a high school athlete, a college athlete, or a hobby or something you did for a long time, and that was like your core identity, and one day it's just gone. That's a
and
devastating
you think you
blow,
can
no
still
matter
do
what.
it.
Yeah.
And you
Right.
think you can still do it, and everyone's telling you can't. It's just awful.
It's got to feel
Yeah.
pretty terrible. It's the downside of being, in the clouds for as long as
I
players get to be in the clouds.
I accidentally thanked a player for all the interviews because I thought their
That's right.
career was done.
Right.
And they didn't understand why I was thanking them. And they're like, are you taking a different job or something? And then I was like, oh God. No, just wherever you sign, I'll be glad to see you again.
Just might not see you for a while.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
That felt really
You
bad.
might end up on the East Coast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like 2 years ago, I did a story about retirement and how so few guys get the retirement tour, right? They get to go out on their own terms. And guys compared it to like dying. Like they were like, it's like a part of you dies.
Wow.
And this is why I think so many players struggle to make that adjustment back to real life. Because their identity has always been as a baseball player. It's not just a regular job. It's just been their identity. And I think they try to hold on to that.
Really high divorce rates. And
Correct.
There's
You just lose your sense of
alcoholism
self.
and- yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's really sad, honestly. Buck always had a saying, I think Billy Martin used to tell him, like, don't ever let a star fall on you, because it is so sad to watch. Vladimir Guerrero here in Baltimore at his final years. It's really sad to watch somebody just deteriorate and get a front row seat. And as you guys said, it's not fun to talk about.
It's amazing that Pujols has done it so gracefully. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of amazing that, like, what's that? Is he doing it gracefully? I mean, he's not playing that well, right? Am I missing? I need to actually pull up his page real quick.
The Dodgers stint for Albert Pujols went better than I expected. Better than a lot of people
Right
expected.
now, he's hitting 250 with a couple homers. I mean, it's
in this environment, he's 30% better than league average. So it counts. Like it counts. But he's had a 5-year stretch prior to this season where he was at least 10% below average. So
he's been a net negative, like wins above replacement. He's been a net negative since 2017. So it hasn't been super graceful in terms of the numbers, but it's been more graceful in terms of how people are reacting to it, how it looks.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Perfect
it's
storm.
Not graceful to watch him run the bases.
Perfect storm, because the down years happened in Anaheim and people just weren't all over him the same way.
Watching those games.
No, a megastar was there to draw attention away, right? If you were watching the Angels, the story wasn't Albert Pujols is in decline. It was Mike Trout's amazing, and now Shohei Ohtani's here and he's amazing. So why would you pick at Pujols? I think he's just been in the right places, performed well in the part-time role with the Dodgers, and then went back home. Which, compared to, Britt brought up Vlad Guerrero going to the Orioles, which there's so many players that have these bizarre end of career seasons with a team that you completely forgot even happened because it's a partial season before they were DFA'd.
Like Mike Piazza,
Yeah,
Hanley
Frank
Ramirez
Thomas
with the
A's.
Guardians, I think, was another weird one. I mean, they weren't the Guardians back then, but at Cleveland. So you just look at some of these players and you're like, whoa, this is bizarre. Like, I can't believe this actually happened. And I think it's like when you see Nelson Cruz struggling, when you see Joey Votto struggling, you start to ask those questions every time you go through a bad month. Is this it? Is this the last of this player being productive? And I think it's some of the worst questions you go through as an analyst or as a writer covering players. You're just like, how do you even go at this topic? And I think it also makes me think of players like Buster Posey, who he decided to retire coming off of a great season last year. And a lot of us were like, well, wait a minute. Why is he retiring? It's like, if you're Buster Posey, you could play and try to play 4 or 5 more years. I'm sure you could have tried that. And you can beat up your body some more. And you can almost certainly decline, because everyone usually declines at the end of their career. And you can live that. And you can go through that. Or you can say, I've had an amazing career. I've won 3 World Series.
Borderline Hall of Famer already.
Already proved everything I can prove in this sport. I guess what I'm saying is, in sport, it's okay if you want to be Buster Posey. You don't owe the world playing until you can't play anymore, because like the psychological impact of that is something that a lot of us probably can't even fully understand.
But there's so many more people that are just lifers that, like,
it
Britt
depends
said,
on the
sort of
guy.
define themselves, as a baseball player.
Yeah.
Yes.
they're going to hold on if they get another chance. They'll do a minor league invite. They'll show up if there's a chance they make the roster.
I was just having this conversation with Anibal Sanchez, and I said, "Are you done? Is this it for you?" He's like, "No, I want to get to 20 years."
How many years has he pitched?
Like 18. That's
Wow.
remarkable. I think, a lot of guys want to get to 10 years. That's a big marker
But there's
as well.
but like 10 years has like a pension thing with it, right?
Correct. It's also
20,
a status
there's nothing
thing.
with 20.
No, but again, I think it's these
But
guys'
there's
identity.
only a very small group of people that's ever played 20 years.
20.
Yeah.
You're right, actually. That'd kind of be a cool story. How many guys have played 20 years?
Yeah.
Especially lately.
Yeah. But
It's
the
a
pension
short
thing
list.
is real too. The 5 you get half pension at 5 or something.
Mhm.
So
Full at 10.
and 5 is really interesting because you have 6 years of team control. So there are these players that are kind of marginal that are just trying to get like one more deal, trying to get that 5th year, knowing that like they're not a star and like, they're 31 and they haven't never been really a full-time starter even. But they just want to get to 5. And then there are other guys who want to get to that 10. 10 usually means you've signed a free agent deal though, so you feel all right.
Yeah.
If you got to 10, things were pretty good in most circumstances. I want to ask each of you, what has changed for you this season? We can kind of go around. We'll start with a hitter. Britt, how about a hitter who has just changed your opinion, good or bad? I think we've been on the negative side with Robinson Canó and aging players, so maybe we want to swing it back into the good side. But who's really opened your eyes here in these first 3.5, 4 weeks of the season, and it showed you something that you just didn't expect to see?
Well, I think someone's got to say Eric Hosmer, right? Like, what?
It's not gonna be me.
you can have Eric Hosmer as your
the
floor is yours, ma'am.
I mean, I'm sure can get into all the stats of why this is a mirage and not a miracle. However, it doesn't matter to me if this is dead cat bounce or what. It's still remarkable to see what he's been able to do. And Manny Machado has been playing great as well, but I think that's much less of a surprise. He's a good player still in the prime. Eric Hosmer is a guy who San Diego really was open about just wanting to dump on anybody at any time over the past year and a half, 2 years even.
11th in wins above replacement right now.
It's remarkable. And I think
Manny's first.
Yes. And my mom said something about like the batting averages that have been going on. Like he's like started the season the best. My mom's a big Padres fan. They all live out there since like Tony Gwynn.
Wow. Because he has a 382 average.
Yeah, 382. Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to mom for that little nugget. We'll find out if she listens to this podcast or if she doesn't support her daughter.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. She does read the articles. I don't know if she's a big audio person. We're gonna find out. But it's got to be Eric Hosmer. I don't know if it's going to last or not, but to me, he's got to be the hitter that I'm most surprised by because they're still missing Tatis. And so having Manny and Hosmer step up the way that they have in a really tough division, to me, has just been remarkable.
It's amazing to me how little has changed about what he does. Like he still hits a ton of ground balls and like, he hasn't like completely changed who he is, but he's just hitting the ball harder, and he's pulling the ball more. So something there is working for him.
Yeah, I don't know. It could have been between his ears, right? Like sometimes, as we have all seen, you can't really explain it. A guy starts off really, really well, and then all of a sudden he just believes he can do it again, and he just never stops.
Yeah. It said there was a small adjustment where he's trying to stay back more on his back leg, and it's not impossible that something like that could allow you to turn on things on the inside, and if you're turning on pitches on the inside, then you're hitting those harder. So there's some aspect to that it could be the adjustment he made.
Yeah.
And then the kudos for him for making adjustments because, you sometimes you get the big pile of cash and you just say, oh, well, that's how the career goes, and others are like, no, I'm going to keep trying. Like Joey Votto is my patron saint. And like that guy has tried about 8 million different ways to be good. Since he signed his contract. So I have a lot of respect for that.
True. Who you going with, Who's your
it's a little bit embarrassing because everybody loves him and he's been tabbed as a future star and it's a little embarrassing to me to have to kind of admit that there was a part of me that was worried that wasn't going to be a star, but Wander Franco is amazing. And the thing that has changed, opened my eyes about what he's doing right now, is he's hitting the ball harder and he's lifting the ball a little bit more. So he's doing the things that could eventually turn into 30 homer power. And that was what I didn't necessarily see for him. I saw him as a guy who could play really good defense and maybe hit you 18 to 20 homers, steal a few bags, and just be, really important for the Rays, but maybe not like Lindor or, one of these top shortstops that takes everybody's attention, wins MVPs, that sort of deal. I saw a little bit of a softness in the batted ball stats last year in terms of how hard he hit it and in what angles he hit it. He's really opened my eyes. He's got a really good approach right now where he can hit the high fastball the other way for homers, and he can club the sliders too. So he's got great bat to ball, good eye, really good eye at the plate, and now he's adding that power bit.
Yeah, I think Wander and Hosmer are both good choices for just first month, even though they're like total opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of broader expectations. I think I was in you could DFA Eric Hosmer and just accept it as a mistake that you made as an organization. If they had done that, they'd be missing someone that's actually helped them to this point. And they're off to a good enough start where that clearly would have been a misstep. And with Wander, I think the concerns that you had, were probably, you weren't alone in those concerns. I think it was just a question of how quickly was it all going to come together, and it's happening faster for Wander than even a lot of the.
And maybe we should have anticipated that to some degree because he's been a young guy, at all the levels, and he's been just a rocket through the minors. Like maybe I should have foreseen that, like the getting better part would happen pretty quickly too.
Yeah, so I've got Nolan Arenado as my player who's really changed my mind.
Second in Fangraphs WAR on the year.
A good one, yeah.
Second in WAR, and the reason I was concerned about him to begin the season is I was looking at the StatCast numbers from last year, and all of the power in St. Louis, all of it was to the pull side, and it still is. I don't think it matters. I think this approach works. The way he's being pitched,
as long as you're pulling them in the air, right?
Yeah, he's hitting the ball in the air, I think, more than ever. A 20.6% ground ball rate would easily be a career best. So if he's going to hit the ball in the air more than ever, even in that park, even with a deadened ball, he's still going to be very productive. I thought we were seeing the beginning of a very graceful decline for Nolan Arenado. He's the kind of player who doesn't strike out a lot. He draws walks, plays every day because of his defense, still a very good defender too. I just thought the offensive peak was behind him, and maybe he's still in it in some ways, or maybe he's at least capable of running it back and popping to the 30 home runs this year and doing it with a better supporting slash line too. So he's someone I was very skeptical of from a fantasy perspective. He's a part of the core part of their offense. Maybe they're going to underperform offensively in St. Louis. He is completely reverse course for me through the first month.
What's cool about this too is like you can totally see where that sort of feeling came from in terms of, he had these peak seasons 2017 through 2019 where he was 30% better than league average and hitting 40 homers and just, really great. And then there was a step back from that, and you could sort of see an aging curve where you're like, okay, he's going to be slightly better than average for a couple more years, and then he's going to be average, and then he'll be out. And, that's not going to be a Hall of Fame trajectory. If he is really changing his trajectory right now, like if he's really going to be really great again for the next 3-4 years, this could be a Hall of Fame trajectory. You know what I mean? Like he could be changing from like the Hall of, very good to the Hall of Fame pathway right in front of our eyes. Like, I mean, if he right now, he's got 275 homers and a career 289 average. That's a pretty good combo. Now, if he keeps those numbers high while he gets past 500 homers, I think he's in the conversation because he's always been really excellent defensively. So you're talking about basically a Rolen type, a Scott Rolen type with more power, so you could be changing that right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is the part of the profile. 9 Gold Gloves already for Arenado. I think he definitely put a Hall of Fame trajectory foundation in place in Colorado, but I think the in Colorado hurts you as a player. Yeah. It's not his fault. That's the team that drafted him. That's where he started his career. You can only play where you play. until you have a choice or until you get traded somewhere else. The interesting thing, Arenado has an opt-out after this season. I think because of his age especially, hitting the market again as a free agent probably wouldn't get him a lot more, at least in terms of an average annual value. But whereas previously I thought it was impossible that he would opt out of that deal, there's
Maybe
at
he
least
maybe
a
just
5%
locks
chance.
in. Maybe he just locks
Yeah.
in. It seems like he's happy in
It
St. Louis too. So
adds an
maybe he just
extension.
locks in another year or something.
Yeah, right. That to me is more likely what's going to happen. But he's easily the good player that has turned it back around in a way where I'm stunned. The barrel rate's up. I was really concerned about where that was headed coming out of last season.
I didn't know if are we going to do pitchers separately, or can I just throw 2 pitchers on here real quick?
No, go ahead. Bring it around with the pitchers.
All right,
Yeah,
these
bring
two
'em. Start it.
pitchers, I have the stuff metric that's supposed to be really reactive and tell us really quickly when someone has changed. And the 2 pitchers that really stand out right now that have completely changed who they are from year over year are Kyle Wright with the Braves and Tyler Megill with the Mets. And I think those 2 pitchers, not only have they added velo, but they've changed the shapes of their pitches. They've changed them completely. In Kyle Wright's case, the changeup doesn't look anything like it used to look, and now it looks like more like a top 5 changeup in the league. So he's gone from trying to do the 4-seam and the sinker to just having a really great sinker, really great changeup, really great curveball. He used to have some command problems, but now he's just throwing everything with great shape and velocity more towards the middle of the zone and letting the movement take it out. So it's just a really revamping with Kyle Wright. Tyler Megill, same thing. We're more ride on the fastball. It was a kind of average-ish fastball, more ride and velo on the fastball, makes everything play off of that better. So both of those guys, I think, changed from, guys who might be like, okay, he's our 6th guy, and he'll step in and to like, no, this is one of our top 3 pitchers in our rotation, and really important for both of those teams. Like both of those teams really needed a young pitcher. I mean, the Mets, it's the kind of difference between winning a championship and winning your division, I think, is Tyler Megill stepping up and being like, no, we're good, like 4, 5, 6 deep. And we're really good 4, 5, 6 deep. For the Braves, it's like we really need a pitcher. Like Charlie Morton's hurting. Huascar Ynoa is back in the minors. Like we really need a pitcher, and Kyle Wright stepped up, exactly what they needed.
Yeah,
it looks like a totally different guy. How about you, Britt?
Yeah, so spoiler alert, as knows, I wrote about this today. I'm going to go with, as a whole, like the Twins rotation, which, like, I'm sorry, did anybody see them being the best, among the best in baseball? They have the best ERA in the American League. They're second only to the Dodgers in all of baseball. And kind of like was saying, this is a depth scenario. They've already used 7 different starters. This isn't like there's 2 guys at the top dealing and everyone else is just
almost like the Rays model a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating. And I had of course, look at some smart stats for me so that I could sound super smart when talking to some of these guys. And Chris Paddock, as tweeted, the fastball command is elite. And when in talking to him, and this is kind of goes back to what I said earlier, he really said that it was about basically their pitching coach being like, reminding him, like, you're really good. He said he got hit around the last 2 years and it kind of got in his head a little bit. And, he did add a 4th pitch. He did add a slider, which gives him a little more movement, especially to the right. A lot of his pitches kind of break left or go down. So that kind of adds a little bit more. But, he's only going to throw 10, 12 of those in a start. It still is going to be enough to keep guys off balance. But he just seems like a guy who really needed some confidence, has had some success, and now is just pitching like we saw flashes of in San Diego. So to me, that whole rotation, Joe Ryan, there's this crazy stat about how he started the first 9 games of his career with the lowest whip since Christy Mathewson in 1900. Like the Twins are just doing crazy stuff right now with that rotation top to bottom. And I don't think anybody saw this coming at all. Dylan Bundy right now is throwing a lot more fastballs. He's kind of ditched a lot of his off speed. And his
fastball is 89 miles an hour. How is that a good idea? It's crazy.
I know. It is crazy. He said to me what he's done. He's like, the velo is obviously not there. What he's done a lot of is read swings, like in between, at bats, like in real time. He said it's really easy to read swings from the dugout. I've gotten a lot better at reading swings in the moment and then making adjustments based on that. And as Eno pointed out, the Twins staff tops in the AL and going up and in, and they can control it. They're a staff that's had really good control as a whole. So they don't strike out a lot of guys. They're 19th in, I think, Ks over 9. But they have excellent control, and there's just nothing you can do with that high and inside pitch for most guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think every conversation I had about the Twins from, I don't know, November until opening day had some form of, what about the rotation? How are they going to have enough quality starting pitchers to deliver on some of the potential that we thought this team had a year ago? I liked them as a bounce back team. Britt, I was behind the Byron Buxton superstar plan. Like I thought all that made sense, but I had no idea how they were going to get enough quality innings from this rotation. And they're at least showing that maybe the level in April that they've reached is not sustainable all season, but they're not a liability. And I think that's a pretty big step forward for the Twin starters compared to a lot of expectations just a couple of months ago. I got to throw Kevin Gausman in the conversation here. I think the key difference for me is he's throwing the slider again. My issue with Gausman at the end of last year, he was a 2-pitch guy. It was fastball splitter. The results in the second half of the season tailed off a bit. I just thought, I don't know if this is going to work. Going back into the AL East, catching 3 consistently tough matchups, seeing the Yankees, the Rays, and the Red Sox as much as he's going to see them, I don't think it's going to work out. Clearly, I've been wrong. Bringing the slider back is just part of that story, but he's just a more balanced pitcher. I trust the guy with that third pitch so much more than I trust a 2-pitch starter. So for me, it's another check in the favor of the Jays and things they see in players and pitching tweaks and adjustments. But I mean, I was avoiding Gausman completely back in fantasy draft season because I thought the price was too high for what he was likely to do, and I've been extremely wrong.
He's really showing this one finding that they've had, which is, that if you add another pitch that you throw 10% of the time, you have a better third time through the order penalty. You are able to turn the lineup over better. That's obvious, of course, maybe because you have more pitches and you can change it up. But the thing that's fascinating about it is it doesn't matter how good the third pitch is. It doesn't matter how great that pitch is. If you throw it 10% of the time, it makes you better at turning the lineup over. And in this case, I don't think the slider is amazing. My stuff metric has it basically as 10 as below average. But it's good enough. It's like they're all looking split finger and fastball, and then they get the slider, and it's a surprising enough thing that it's been very helpful for him.
Yeah, it's really impressive, the start that he is off to, and I think it's actually very sustainable too. I'm not worried about a second half fade from Gausman based on what we've seen early on this season. From a team perspective, I'll go negative on this one. The Reds are putrid, and I didn't think they'd be this bad. I thought the Reds, especially being in the NL Central, would be
with Green and Lodolo,
a 500 team with some interesting young players. One that you'd look back at the end of the year and say, still don't really know why they wanted to trade Winker and Suarez away, why they made their team immediately worse with the moves they made this offseason, saving money. But wow, they're a disaster. And I think the problem is you can be bad, you can be underwhelming, you can go 8-17 in your first 25 games, and like, yeah, okay, you're off to a bad start. When you go 3-20, I feel like that puts some clouds over your clubhouse that you just can't get out of. Like they're going to be unfortunately, they're going to be in fire people territory. And I think that just causes teams to unravel. And I think it's going to be just a completely lost year for Cincinnati, which is such a disappointment because back before the lockout, you could have told me they were going to contend in the NL Central, and I would not have argued back against you.
Well, once you trade away like actual starters like Sonny Gray and start like just dumping guys who can still help you. Unfortunately, who they're going to fire is not who they need to fire, which is Phil Castellini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
some of the stuff that's happened has been weird, right? The Tyler Stevenson injury, that's unfortunate. You think about Jonathan India having hamstring trouble. Like those things start to pile up too when you're kind of
But championship teams have depth to overcome those sort of things.
Right. And I think Tyler Mahle has been a big disappointment. That's been a surprise for me. They also caught a tough schedule, but that's not enough. You can't go 3-20 in your first 23 games. Like I'm just wrong. I thought this team was actually going to be competent and fun to watch, and they're generally not.
Neither. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's been unfortunate. They've been the biggest, I think, surprise in a negative fashion. The White Sox obviously haven't played well, but they've been just ransacked by injuries. I feel like no one is really truly buried that we didn't expect to be buried, except for the Reds. The Rockies are a nice surprise on the positive side. Like, how long can they keep this up? I don't know. Um,
Not
you
long is the
know,
answer.
yeah, probably not long, but you know.
Yeah, the Reds are having the season I thought the Rockies were going to have.
Yeah, they've taken some heat off the Orioles and Pirates, if you think about it.
It really have. It's very nice of them to do that. A few things have gone right for the Rockies, even with Chris Bryant missing some time on the IL. You know, Randall Grichuk's doing kind of typical Randall Grichuk power things. Connor Joe looks like a pretty nice find for them. He's off to another good start, played pretty well at the end of last season. And CJ Crone, I just think health permitting is actually a pretty good middle of the order power bat for them. So they can score runs. The weirdest thing about the Rockies, Herman Marquez is a mess. Like if you told me, yeah, the Rockies are exceeding expectations, I'd say, sure. Herman Marquez is like a top 25 starting pitcher who just has to pitch in the most difficult place to pitch. He's been awful. He's getting just crushed inside the zone. Got hammered again by the Nationals. I think that was on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
There's like no end in sight for his struggles. So I'm with Eno. Like, I see it as like I'm skeptical of how long it lasts, but I'm glad for the sake of the fans there that they're not a total disaster right now, especially given how difficult that division is.
And kudos for them for finding Austin Gomber and Chad Kuhl. I think like maybe there is more there than people expect. I liked Austin Gomber as St. Louis starter. So, maybe there was something that they identified that was actually transferable to Coors. Chad Kuhl actually throws the like John Gray fastball. It's funny too, because John Gray is like, it's not a good fastball. And the numbers say it's not a good fastball. But the thing that's interesting about it is it doesn't, it functions the same in Colorado as it does on the road. There's something that it just doesn't get screwed up by Colorado as much as other pitches. So Chad Kuhl kind of has that Rockies fastball that they're looking for, and he's doing really well. So maybe they are finding their way to like how to win there. It's just weird to me because it's largely the same people that were there before and they were bad before. I mean, does Connor Joe and Chad Kuhl and Chris Bryant make a team from a very bad team to a very good team? Because otherwise, am I missing? Who else have they added?
They didn't make that many additions. I mean, Grichuk is a
Grichuk.
Good compiler, but he's not necessarily a player that wins you a lot of games. Like if you look historically at WAR, he's the kind of guy that hits like 250 with a 300 OBP and pops 25 plus homers. That doesn't move the needle in terms of actually winning games. It looks nice on the back of a baseball card, which it's just that kind of profile. I'm not singling Grichuk out there. A lot of players like that. So I look at this group and I'm like, come on, like they're not really any better than they were last year. And you're also, I mean, Story's gone, so you're replacing Story with Bryant. Like, okay, so
right.
your best addition is just offsetting your biggest loss. They're not better.
Yeah, I can't imagine it, but
so
my team, I bold predicted them to do exactly what they did last year. So I guess I'm not, surprise is a weird word here, but I do think that every year we look at the San Francisco Giants lineup and go, not again. You can't do it again. And every year we look up and the Giants are third in the league in runs scored. Now, I did predict them for like 800 runs, but that was like last year's run environment. Like there was, like nobody's going to maybe score 800 runs this year. It looks like it's a very different run environment. But they have scored over 100 runs, and the league lead is like 100 and, I had it up, 110 or something. So they're not that far off the league lead, and they're doing it with all the same people. And I think that they have 110, and the Mets and the Yankees have 118, and they're tied for second, really, or third. The interesting thing about it is I think that the way that they train, I think every team is going to eventually do this, and they call it training dirty. And so what they do is they have these little yellow balls that move more than regular balls. And so it's a little bit like that blitz ball, or like, it's like they have these balls that augment the movement. So now they have, and they're soft, so it doesn't hurt you when it hits on the handle. So they throw these things in the machine, and they do 95-mile-an-hour sliders that have, like 50% more movement than regular sliders. And they have change-ups that just drop off the table. So they're training dirty. The things that they're trying to do are make it even harder than what the game is. They're turning the machine up to 110. They're just making it as hard as possible in training, so that when you go up there at the plate, you're like, man, this guy's only throwing 99.
Yeah. Is it kind of like the effect? Imagine you face a team's ace, and then you face the number 3 starter later in the series. After seeing the ace, the number 3 star doesn't look that good, right? That stuff's not as crisp. The breaking balls don't break as much. Maybe the velo is a little bit lighter. I do think it's forcing yourself to see things better than what you're going to see. That gives you a chance to be more productive against normal, even good, but even normal stuff.
Yeah, and then I think they're also really good at like making the machine do like things that night starter is going to do.
That's
so
really
if
important.
that night starter has a lot
that.
if tonight's starter has a lot of ride, then the machine's going to be turned up plus ride, and even more ride than the guy they're seeing. So then when they see it, they're like, yeah, this is all right. I can handle this.
How is every team not doing that? That seems very logical. That checks out.
Yeah, I don't know if they're the only team doing that, though. I feel like I
wouldn't say they're the only team. Yeah, like
okay.
How is every team? I'm saying, how is every team not doing that?
I don't think every team is doing
very logical.
It takes a little bit of like organizational savvy, like, because the Giants are doing it in AAA and AA too. So now when you're a prospect and you come up, you're like, oh, you're trained the same way as we do down in AAA. So that requires a good pitching coordinator, hitting coordinator, director of player development, buy-in from all your coaches, right? Like it takes a little bit of like organizational savvy to pull that off.
I mean, that just sounds like a thing that if you have lots of money, you could do. And I think these businesses have plenty of money. So
you know what teams don't do enough, I think sometimes? Accountability and firing. Some teams should fire more. It's a sad thing to say, but like, you get baseball lifers, you get people, like I actually had a baseball person tell me, I could fire that person, but what would they do? I don't know. Coach somewhere else, but not for your team.
Write that down for like a November episode when we have nothing. It's a good topic.
Jeez. Yeah,
people we would fire. That goes right along with whose career is over.
Yeah, whose career is over, and then the hall of the very, very good but not.
Oh yes,
stretch.
Oh yes, the 3-0 show. Those guys are really nice.
All right, let's get to our People of the Week segment. I love the new name. We have one hitter, one pitcher that we each select as nominees, and then we choose an actual winner based on the past week of performance. Who is your nominee for Hitter of the Week?
Dang it, I had the pitchers open.
Aha, curveball.
All right, I'll go.
Go ahead, Britt.
I think it's got to be Taylor Ward from the Angels. If you look at what he did, we're just going off of the past week.
Which we have to define better because we're on a midweek recording schedule. So
yeah, I always do Wednesday to Wednesday.
You do Wednesday to Wednesday. Okay, I'll make sure I'm using the same criteria so we're not, breaking this all apart. So Wednesday to Wednesday.
Taylor Ward is an excellent choice.
Yeah, I mean, he scored
393 for the week. Yeah.
Yeah, scored 10, drove in 11, 448, 484, 1,000 slash line during this past week. I don't know how you don't go with him. He's been having a really nice season. And we haven't really talked much about the Angels, which is unfortunate because, as I mentioned, they're in first place. It's kind of cool to watch because they've just, every year haven't been able to put it together. It is early, but he's been like he has all the makings of kind of like a breakout season. He's 28 years old. Could this be the year he puts it together? There's so many guys in that lineup that you want to pitch around that, maybe he is the benefactor of all of that. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely a good nominee. I'm going to throw Aaron Judge in there. It's kind of a chalky play. The only thing, if you're picking nits, he was striking out a little bit, but did a ton of damage, led the league in homers during the
5
past week.
homers.
5 homers, drove in
Yeah.
a bunch of runs. The Yankees are on fire right now, so that certainly doesn't hurt. So I'm going to throw Aaron Judge in there as my nominee.
I got a Houston 2-pack, Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker. Alvarez had the superior week. He walked more, 4 homers, 391 average, was bazonkers. But the reason I wanted to throw Kyle Tucker in there was he had the poor start, but all the underlying metrics said that Kyle Tucker was fine. He was barreling the ball. He wasn't chasing. He was making contact like ever before. And so then he had this week in the past week where he hit a homer, stole 2 bases, and hit 478. And now we all have to recognize that Kyle Tucker was fine all along. So that's why I'm going to throw him in there. But I think Yordan Alvarez is my choice for hitter of the week.
Yeah, all 3 of these guys were crushing it, so there's not really a bad choice to settle on. I always feel like this award goes to the most surprising player who gets nominated.
Taylor Ward it is!
In that regard, Taylor Ward
Yes.
is our winner for this week's Hitter of the Week award. Let's go to the pitching side. Plenty of options there. And, you were ready for pitching when I asked about hitting, so you get to go first on pitching.
Dylan Mustachio Cease. It's the mustache power, dude. I'm all over that guy. He used to have a command problem and be a stuffist extraordinaire. Now he's painting. In his last start, he was hitting 97 on the corners, and it was beautiful. He was able to hit the top of the zone without necessarily. In the past, he's sometimes 3 feet above the zone. Like he doesn't have great command above the zone, but in this start, he was able to dot at the top of the zone, at the bottom of the zone, 97. And I just remember John Baker used to work for the Cubs, and he pulled me over to a cage and said, "You got to watch this guy pitch." And I actually mentioned that to John Baker recently. He goes, "Well, I'm no scout, but it's pretty easy." It was 98 up at the top of the zone with a nasty breaking ball and a great changeup. And well, all those things are still true. So Dylan Cease is my guy.
All right. How about you, Britt? Who's your nominee?
I like that. I'm torn here. So I feel like we haven't, and DVR did give Kevin Gossman some love, but we haven't really given him a whole lot of love. And if you look at the past week, he's good. But to me, it's hard. Are we also judging off of the past few weeks, right? Like Logan Gilbert in Seattle. I think he got pitcher of the month in April. Terrific as well. It's hard to kind of just point to one guy, one start. You can only start once in the course of a week, and we can overreact on here. I think Kevin Gossman.
Yeah, is it always going to be a 2-starter, right?
Yeah,
Drew Rasmussen was great.
Yeah, let's throw his name in the hat just because of the body of work and the fact that what he's doing has just been. I've had conversations with a couple different guys, and he just keeps coming up unprompted. I think there are a lot of players who are watching and kind of really impressed with what he's been able to do since he went over to Toronto this first month.
A good selection for sure. I do have a 2-start pitcher for me. It's Zach Gallen, who has pitched very well in his last 2 starts. Didn't get a win against the Dodgers, but the Diamondbacks won that game, and he threw 6 scoreless with 5 Ks against the Dodgers. If you're keeping that lineup quiet, you're doing something right. Came back with 5 more Ks and 6 1/3 against his former club when he faced the Marlins in his last outing. So I'm going to throw Zach Gallen in as our 3rd nomination. Are we using the most surprising name of the 3 to award the pitcher of the week too?
Yes, we got to go with the mustache. We got to go with Eno if we're going to do that. No,
we're going to go Cease.
Is he the most surprising one? I think maybe the most surprising might be Gallen, but Dylan Cease has 20 strikeouts in the last week. 2nd place among qualified starters is Alek Manoah with 14. I mean, come on.
We love.
Sometimes we just got
strikeouts.
When someone is just another level beyond, when someone has 6 strikeouts above 2nd place, I think we got to give it to him.
All right. We will give the award to Dylan Cease. We're going to say the mustache breaks the tie in this case. It's good that he's ready for Halloween several months early too. So he's got a lot of options if he keeps that thing going all the way through the end of the season. We have to go. If you got a question for us for a future episode, feel free to email us. The Rates and Barrels email is ratesandbarrels@theathletic.com. That's the best way to reach us for this show. Just let us know it's for the 3-0 show, or ask in the comment section under this video on YouTube. On Twitter, Eno is at at Saris. Britt is at Britt_Giroli, and I am at Derek Van Riper. Feel free to drop us questions there. Just let us know that they're for the pod, and we'll be sure to get to those topics in a future week. That's going to do it for this episode of the 3-0 show. The Athletic Baseball Show returns on Friday.